Hello, this is It's Mental Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Richard McLachlan.
That's how I always introduce myself.
Okay.
With the hands too.
Yeah. So do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. I am Richard McLachlan. I'm an expat. Obviously, I'm an Aussie. I'm based in Berlin. Travelled the world, but found this wonderful city and decided to stay. I'm a kind of a startup marketing guy, head of marketing in different companies over the last few years, and I've been doing comedy for a couple of years. I actually started almost at the same time as you, Moni. I think you're a few weeks ahead, or maybe a month ahead of me, but we started pretty close to the same time.
Cool. How do you know when I started?
Because there was the new comedians competition on.
Oh, yeah.
And in order to be in it, you couldn't have been a veteran.
Yeah.
And I remember when my heat was called, one of the organisers went, "Oh gosh, look who's in your heat. That's very, very strong." And then someone said, "Oh, it doesn't matter who's in your heat. Moni's going to win because she's just too ridiculously funny." I'm like, "Who's Moni? I hadn't actually met you then." And then I stalked you, as you do, on the YouTube, and I looked at your videos, and I watched this progression of you doing this set, and you started out rough and raw. I'm like, "Oh, I think I can be as funny as that." And then I watched it again, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. I'm like, oh, all right. It was so beautiful to see this progression of you, like so nervous and working it out to this poised professional by the end of it. So I'm a fan, obviously, gushing away here.
Oh my God, I have a secret stalker now.
Completely platonic and safe, and like a parental kind of thing.
Yeah. You can be my dad, actually. What's your oldest children?
My oldest child is turning 28 this year.
Okay, I'm 30, so almost.
Yeah.
So how old are you?
I'm 51.
So you started the comedy when you are 48?
Yeah, 48, almost 49. Yeah, it was a bucket list thing. Like I kind of thought maybe I could be funny. I was that guy at parties cracking jokes and getting laughs and thinking, maybe I could be funny, but too frightened to get up on stage in case I actually was just shit and the people at parties were drunk and laughing at me because everything was funny. But then it was like, well, got to give it a crack, got to have a try. And yeah, so 40, almost 49, first gig. Yeah.
Wow, that's so nice. We are talking about that later. Let's start with your relationship with mental health. So, do you feel comfortable to tell us a bit?
I do. I actually have a longer history with mental health issues than I've ever spoken to you about. My first brush with it was at university, my first year at university. First year at university, I was in the top 10 in my year, and like 1,200 students, so I was doing really, really well. I had a new girlfriend who I thought was just amazing. I had a new job. I'd met some new friends, and I sat down in my room and thought, wow, I think I want to kill myself. Like, what's this all about? And I had no idea what was going on. And I went and spoke to my parents. I said, look, everything's great except the whole suicidal desire. What I don't know what to do. So I said, look, I need to change. I actually went and lived with my grandparents for a few months. I had a very good relationship with them. And then about 4 months later, I gradually came out of it and I was okay. And it wasn't until much later when I was reading some reports in the paper that I realized it was probably drug related. At the time I had really bad acne. I was like just this red mess. And I took this drug called Roaccutane, which for some people causes suicidal thoughts. But at that time there was no information about it. So I didn't know what was going on. So that was number one. And then I went, oh, drugs can mess with your mind.
And when you got out of this depression, did you stop this drug you were taking?
Yeah, it was for the period that I was on the drug, and for a month. In the month after I came off it, I recovered. It was difficult though, because I went from depression to despondency. Because through the depression, I went from top 10 to just passing university. I lost my girlfriend. I stopped hanging out with my friends, these new friends. So at the end, I didn't have this chemical issue in my brain anymore, but life wasn't as good as it was 6 months before. So that was tricky.
And when you stopped this drug, did you already knew it was because of the drug, or it was a coincidence you stopped?
No, it was a decade later that I found out. I read these medical reports about these young people who were happy and successful who were committing suicide because they appeared they were taking this drug.
Is this drug still legal now?
It is. It is. The incidence of depression, of severe depression, is quite low. So they still prescribe it, but they now advise you because they know. But at the time, it was very new and they didn't know. So, yeah.
Wow. So that since then, did you have a relapse of depression?
Well, I did, and again, it was drug related. Look, I'm generally a pretty happy guy. The glass is half full, and I've got a bunch of glasses. That's how I see the world. So I'm drinking from all of these half full glasses. But in my mid-40s, I had an accident. I was very physical up until then. I was running a lot. I was a football coach. I was rock climbing. I had an accident, and as a result, I became a semi-invalid, and it was an embarrassing kind of thing. I remember one time I was at the supermarket with my son, and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry, mate. I can't walk anymore. I'm in too much pain. I have to lie down on the ground." So this is in the shopping centre, and I'm lying down on the ground in the shopping centre. People are walking past, and they're looking at me like I'm a drug addict or I'm a homeless person. And I was so embarrassed for my son, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry, mate." And he's like, "Oh, it's all right, Dad. I know you're in pain. I'm all right." I was so humiliated and embarrassed and frustrated. It was really terrible. But that wasn't enough for me to think I really need to do something. I actually started to wet myself. I had an injury in my back that was pressing on nerves, and I was losing control. So I thought, all right, I have to get surgery, and which I'd put off. I put off for 3 years, and I finally got the surgery. And I was told a lot of things by the surgeon that everything was going to be fine. He told me that I was going to be on 3 drugs, and I was going to be on oxycodone, which is an opiate, and with opiates they make you feel like you don't have a care in the world. This is how it was explained to me. I was going to be on dexamethazone, which is a steroid which reduces inflammation, and this also makes you feel young again because you don't have the aches and pains and swelling. You feel like you've got this new young body again. And Lyrica, which was to help with the nerve regrowth. They were going to cut all these different nerves and everything was going to heal. And so that's what I was told. And I thought, that sounds great. Young again, not a care in the world. And no, that didn't happen. So you see heroin addicts and you think, wow, they're sitting in their own filth. They haven't eaten for weeks. And how can they do that? And like opiates, they make it so that you just don't care. You don't care what's happening. And that's what happened to me. I didn't care what was going on. The I don't give a fuck principle. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I stopped taking care of myself in terms of my personal hygiene. I didn't shower for about 3 weeks. I wore the same clothes. I stopped grooming myself. I stopped cleaning parts of my body that were hard to reach because of the back surgery. So I was a total mess. The dexamethasone, which was supposed to make me feel young again, well, it did make me feel young again, but it made me feel young again by making me have great swings in behaviour. My moods were complete. I was completely unable to control them. I was like a drunk teenager with Tourette's syndrome. Okay, I had all of these explosive thoughts, and I would just say them. I'd burst into tears, or I'd get very angry. I would thought people weren't supporting me. I really felt young again, but just like a hyper self-critical teenager. So that was atrocious. And then the Lyrica, well, that was supposed to just cause me no problems. It made me feel suicidal again. So I wanted to jump off my balcony. So and I didn't give a fuck, and I didn't care that my ass hadn't been wiped in 2 weeks because, well, I didn't give a fuck about anything. The doctors could see me, and I wouldn't care. And the young again part, I was impetuous enough that I thought I might actually jump off. So I was in a state, and yeah, that was terrible.
So during the time, how old were you?
So I was 48 at this stage.
Oh, so right before you start comedy.
Yeah. This is so I had the operation in the November of my 48th birthday. And then by February, I was psychotic. I went back to work and blew up at work, did all these crazy things and ended up getting fired. And then I did 3 months of drug rehab. And that was really terrible. Like I thought, I'll stop taking the drugs. I ended up in hospital. Like an ambulance had to take me in because the withdrawal was so terrible. Your body stops producing the things that you need to prevent pain. So my body was just in such pain, I thought I was going to die. And then I had the same sort of situation when I'd come through the drug rehab as I had when I'd come through the Roaccutane problems. I now lost my job. My relationship had imploded. Physically, I was in a mess. You can't be a drug addict for months and months and months and be in good shape. I cut myself off from the people I knew, and life just seemed like it just had no value, and I just didn't know what to do. But what I did know is that I couldn't continue like this. I couldn't continue in a hopeless life. And I thought, all right, well, what can I do? I thought, all right, well, stand-up comedy. Maybe if I can make other people laugh, or if I can make myself laugh, or I can have a feeling of success, or I can just show myself I can still do something, even though everything else has fallen apart, that this could be enough to lift me. Yeah. So I went and watched a show, and I thought, I think I can do this. I think I can. At the time, I had no idea about comedy, really, the whole timing but I got up and I did a set, and then I'm halfway through, and it was a little room, and there was a restaurant next door as well. And then I realised that halfway through the set, everyone was laughing. Everyone from the restaurant had come in, all the bar staff from the restaurant had come in, and I had this crowded room, absolutely packed, and they were laughing so much. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm having the best time of my life. I'm a comedy god. I'm not. But,
which bar is it?
This was actually the Four Eyes comedy night.
Yeah.
I've since been banned from there, but
so you started as a storytelling show.
Yeah. Started as a storyteller.
Yeah. So this time for your drug-induced depression, during this time you act like a teenager. How old are your children at this time?
Okay, so my eldest was an adult. She wasn't living with us. My 19-year-old had moved to England. So she was in England. So I only had my then 12-year-old son. And he thought it was great because I'm playing video games with him, and I'm just like acting like a teenager and just being a dickhead. And so he's like, oh, this is fun. Dad's a teenager.
Who was the more mature person between you two?
My son's always been more mature than me.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I don't know. I think I should get a DNA test. He's better looking than me. He's more mature than I am. He's more sensible. But he's more likable. But
also because your wife is just a better person, right?
Well, my wife is a better person, but let's be clear. My wife happened after as well. My relationship imploded. So my wife is not the mother of my children.
Oh, but So you met your current wife after this drug-induced episode?
Correct. After this drug-induced episode, after my whole life imploded, I rebuilt myself, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you with a partner when it happened?
Yeah.
And so you had a separation after this episode?
We did. Look, I don't want to go into that too much. I think that would be disrespectful to her. But after I did the drug rehab, I was definitely in a difficult place in my mind, and I was unable to see the positives in my life, and that made me a bad person to be with, and I chose to divest myself of my past and just try and find something else. But yeah, she was there through the back surgery, and she was there to watch me go through this, I don't know, into this pit of despair. She was telling me, look, you can't go back to work. You're a crazy person. I'm like, I'm fine. What are you talking about? Just a bit of suicidal thought tendencies and telling people to fuck off in the street. It's great.
Is this the same wife now or the previous one?
Okay, so this is my previous partner.
Okay.
So I was with Nikki for 24 years. She saw me go through this, and then at the end of it all, I'm just like, look, I can't make sense of my life, and we separated, and that separation in the end became a permanent split. And then I met Chris about 10 months later, and we're now married.
Wow. I didn't know that. I always thought that you are together for many years and lately got married. So it happened rather recent.
Yes, very recently. It all happened very fast. I was like, these kids today on the Tinder, I'll give that a try and see if I can meet someone for a hookup. And Chris and I met, and then I think I moved in like 3 weeks later, and we're still together, very happy.
Wow, yeah. 3 weeks later, you moved into her place?
Yeah.
Because she has a big place?
No, she had a one-room studio. So, and we get on so well that we were just happy in this single studio. We're both very introverted, one-person people. So the fact that we work together, we play together, we watch TV, we play cards, we go walking, we do everything possible together. So
in the past few years, you really went through a big roller coaster. And this drug-induced depression was really a big episode in your life, changed many part of it.
Yeah, look, it changed. There were a lot of changes. Yeah, a lot of changes. My focus, my outlook on life now, though, I'd have to say it's positive. It's a net positive. I went down. Then I was at this low level for so long, but now being able to look at it and go, right, this is not right. There's something wrong. You have to do something. I was able to, bring myself back up on many levels, like work-wise, social-wise, finding lots of things to do,
You talk about a rehab. Were you actually in a rehab center?
No, I didn't go to a rehab center, but I had a rehab doctor, and he had a look at the drugs that I was on. He's like, that you're only supposed to take this one for 5 days, and you've taken it for 5 weeks, and you've taken it at like triple the strength. And I'm like, that's what I was told. And that is what happened. I had a really bad recovery, and the doctor vastly upped the recommended level of the medication and didn't tell me to stop taking it. And so I had to do this withdrawal where every week I would drop down a level and be on the couch shivering and just, it was really like a movie, the withdrawal.
Wow. Well, the initial doctor who gave you those medicine, was there a consequence because they did a mistake?
Look, my experience with those sorts of things is that it's a little bit pointless, and it also meant that I was going to have to commit to being involved in that rather than committing to just taking part in the positive parts of my life. So I just didn't really want to bother. There was no consequence.
Okay.
I didn't take it any further.
With the whole this episode of drug-induced depression, do you feel it's purely drug-induced, or was it something also potential in your life that just came out of surface at that time?
Look, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. There have been periods in my life where I've thought, oh, maybe I could become a depressed person. But I'm very aware of my own mental state. I'm talking to myself all the time about how I feel and all right, so you're going down a dark path here, Richard. Pick yourself up, move it forward. So I guess my position is everyone has the capability to be depressed. Some people have got a very different mental balance, like the chemistry in their brain is very different, and they've got a much, much higher tendency to be depressed. But for me, it was two things. The drugs massively modified the chemistry in my brain, but they also totally destroyed my ability to self-medicate myself with positive thought and action. So it was those two things for me. Different brain chemistry, and I couldn't positive myself out of my situation.
It's funny that both of your episodes are drug induced. Do you think you are extra sensitive to medication? Do you take any type of drugs for recreational purpose?
I have. I was a clubber. I mean, for a decade, I definitely I took a lot of party drugs. However, even at the time, I was aware of the impact of those drugs on my mind, and I was able to positive thought my way through Weepy Tuesdays and still function at a fairly high level. Do drugs affect me differently? I don't drink coffee anymore because I know that coffee makes me anxious and quite aggressive, and it makes me stink. I get a really high adrenal response. Whereas my wife, she can drink coffee and she's just sitting there fine. She's not sweating and she's not anxious. So I don't know. I think perhaps I do have a different.
Do you drink alcohol?
Sometimes. At the moment, no. This year, no. Last year, a lot.
This year is still early, only like 25 days so far.
Is it? No,
oh, actually, it's
we're into February. Yeah, no, I snore a fair bit because I'm old and fat, and the alcohol doesn't make me a better person. I'm not smarter, I'm not funnier, I'm not nicer, and I misread situations. I don't like it. So
yeah. So after this dramatic episode, how did you come out of it? What did you do? Was it hard to rebuild relationships, rebuild your career, and everything around it?
Well, I guess I did a sort of an Alcoholics Anonymous without God and without support kind of healing. I reached out to all the people who I'd acted poorly towards, and I was honest. I said, look, I'm really sorry. I had a drug-induced psychosis and depression, and it caused me to act out. And I realized that is an excuse. And it doesn't change the fact that I did these things, but I'm sincerely sorry. And so I made amends wherever I could. And then I just went on this, okay, you have to pick yourself up. So I joined the gym and started to get fit. I started doing comedy. I started to retrain in areas of my my career where I wasn't so good. And I started applying for jobs and just, everywhere that I could take a step up, I went, all right, I'll take a step up, make myself feel good about myself again.
this story you have told once at a storytelling show. So it was funny. Everyone was laughing. We had a good time. But at that time when it happened, did you ever imagine it will be a funny story one day?
I did not. I did not. Honestly, coming through the end of it, I'm just like, oh my God, what have I done? What has happened? Like 6 months ago, things weren't fantastic, but they weren't in the toilet. Now, I'm almost 50. I've totally exploded my career and my relationship and a lot of my friendships. This will never be funny. There's no way. But yeah, but very quickly it became funny. Very quickly, as long as you move your life forward to the point where you can look back and go, well, then it can be funny fast. So
how long?
I told it like 4 months after I got fired.
Wow, that is fast.
Yeah, and some of the people who were at my work came to see me perform it, who were there when I got fired. So it was all very healing and shanty. So
yeah, I think so. To be able to talk about something so painful, but in a funny way, I think it's very healing itself.
Well, objectively, it was funny. Objectively, it was funny. I mean, it was very hurtful and damaging to me and those around me. But you're looking at it, you're like, wow, that happened? That's hilarious. Tragedy is funny. It is. So.
Did you seek for help after this episode? Like, for example, therapy?
I did not. I did not. Look, I have been to different types of counselling in the past, relationship counselling, a couple of times, and I've got anger management counselling at one stage. I think a lot of men in their early 20s just don't manage their testosterone very well, and I was quite an angry person, and my life wasn't better for it. So I sought help for that. But this time around, I'm just like, look, Richard, you've had a drug-induced psychosis followed by depression and now despondency because your life is shit. You don't need someone to tell you to pick yourself up and get on with it. You've got to pick yourself up and get on with it. Plus, I was broke. I couldn't afford counselling.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And with I think I'm quite resonate with your story because I also had a little bit dramatic episode at work, and afterwards I feel, oh, this is bad. I feel so shamed, and knowing that you now can laugh at it, I'm thinking, oh, maybe one day I can make jokes about it too. So it's not the end of the day.
So is it more recent for you that that's happened?
Yeah, like a few months ago.
Right.
But I think the event itself is not as embarrassing as yours.
Well, yeah, I sent an email to the entire company saying that the CEO was a psychopath, maniac, and needed to be fired. And then I made a video explaining that and sent that to the company board. And then I made a full 1 hour long presentation with charts and animations and with me in the corner of the video talking and narrating it about how this man was going to destroy the company and they were going to lose all of their money. And I found the private email addresses of the heads of the investment companies and sent it directly to them.
Wow.
And I was the head of marketing, I wasn't just like, the intern. I was one of the management team, one of the senior people in the company, and just acted like a brat.
But on the bright side, isn't it wonderful and great that even for such dramatic episode, actually there's still opportunity in the workplace. So unlike lots of people think, oh, if I make a mistake, then my career is over. Actually, especially in Berlin, in tech companies, there are so many opportunities. Even after this, you still can find your place in another company.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I still had people that supported me, so I could still get a few people to be references for me. That certainly didn't hurt. I also I kept going with my own education and my own confidence in myself. I'm just like, all right, I've blown this up. I can crawl under a rug on the couch and just sit here and lick my wounds forever, or I can just get out there. Definitely, there were like getting back out and applying for jobs was frightening. It was really frightening. Being unemployed sucks. Yeah, being unemployed sucks when you're in Berlin, especially when for the types of jobs I was going for, it's a 3 or 4 month hiring period. So I started looking for a job 3 months after I'd been fired, and then I was still looking at 3 months to get a job. Luckily, I did end up getting one a bit faster. But yeah, there's really nothing you can do that is the end. Well, I guess calling a riot and having people storm the parliament is probably career ending. But apart from that, everything else I think you can come back from. Yeah.
And what's the biggest lesson you learned from this episode?
Be forgiving of yourself and be gentle with yourself. Okay. I fucked up. I screwed up. I caused a lot of harm. And if I had just sat down and just worried about this and been on my own case forever, I just never would have come out of it. So I set myself a life mantra, which was 7 days. You've got 7 days to feel shit. You've got 7 days to feel sorry for yourself and lick your wounds and be, oh, woe is me. But then whatever it is that's happened, whatever it is that you've done, you let it go. You live it, you mourn it, you be sorry about it, and then get going, because no one else is going to pick you up. People can talk to you, but in the end, it's yourself. So give yourself 7 days and then get up, get moving.
Did it really only take you 7 days?
No. I'm talking about now anything that I do. If I do anything now that I'm upset about, that I could obsess about, wish I hadn't done that. Oh, such an idiot. I don't think I'll ever recover from that. Oh, it's like, all right, okay, you did the wrong thing. You're not happy about it. Be better. But move on. 7 days. Yeah.
Cool. And so the next question is about comedy. So now I know your first comedy open mic is a storytelling show. What triggered you, and how you made this thought process say, this is something I want to do now?
Well, it started out, I just wanted to go and be happy. I wanted something to lift me out of the doldrums. And so I went and saw a comedy show, and it was really, really funny, and I had a great time. And I thought, I want to do this. I want to do this too. As much fun as I'm having laughing, imagine if I'm up on stage and I'm making all of these people laugh. Then I can feel like I'm achieving something, I'm doing something to make people happy, where in the past I've made people unhappy. And I don't want to make people unhappy, I want to make people happy. So it was going and seeing a comedy show, going and seeing a storytelling comedy show and going, oh, look, I really want to do this. Just once. It was going to be a bucket list, just once. But yeah.
Do you always like comedy, or it just come to your mind at that period?
No, I'd never thought of being a comedian. Look, the reality is I'm not as smart as what I was, and I find myself often in this position when I'm hanging around the young comedians and they're ripping off these jokes really fast, and I'm just sort of sitting there and drinking my beer going, look at these kids, they're so funny and smart. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not as quick. But I can craft a story and I can rehearse it and I can deliver it. So that kind of comedy suits me. And I do like to tell stories. I've had a lot of interesting things happen to me, and I like to talk about them.
So your comedy is more about a storytelling format?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the first story I did was talking about my experiences as a white man with a black penis. I had a surgery that it resulted in my penis turning black.
Is that true?
So yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah. So I got what's called the snip, and after I got the snip, about a week later, I pulled out one of the stitches, and it caused a bleed under the skin, and my testicles and my penis turned completely black, and it wasn't painful. And I was actually on a dirty weekend with my partner at the time, who's black, and I came running out, waving this black penis around, going, "Wow, baby, guess what? I'm finally able to give you a big black dick." And she's like, "Oh my God." So I made that into a set, basically.
But is it permanent? The black
No,
thing?
no.
Oh, okay.
It's not permanently black. It's not permanently bigger. Actually, it was never bigger. It's just black. So, yeah, no, it horrifies audiences, but yeah, they groan and laugh. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds more scary for me. I was like, is it going to die of no blood? It will like fall off or something.
It wasn't scary at all to me, only because I'd had a wisdom tooth operation, and I'd had the same thing happen, where they'd pulled my mouth open too wide, and then I had a black face, like it was just blood under the skin. And this is the same thing. I knew that my dick wasn't going to drop off. It was just basically a bruise from blood just going under the skin.
So you are not afraid it will drop off?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. I was like, oh, I hope you still have your penis.
Yeah, I still have my penis.
So, with comedy, what's your do you think it changed you or impacted you in any positive or negative way? Because you said you only do it once, but obviously you did more.
Yeah, look, I love the thrill. Yeah, I love the rush of, rehearsing it and thinking you've got it right, and then you're about to get up on stage and like, oh my God, or having a new set and going, oh, this could go well or this could be terrible. It's like comedy. You know what it's like. It's not like karaoke. You can't go into the bathroom and you can go to the bathroom and sing, and you can listen to it on your phone. You go, oh, that sounds all right. Fine, I'll do karaoke. You can't go into the bathroom, tell yourself jokes and go, ha, 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 that's so funny. You can't tell. You're not an audience member. So every time you get up with new material, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's shit. So it's that unknown, that mix of, I hope it works out. If it does, it's great. But the possibility of failing makes the feeling of succeeding so good. It's like a drug.
Yeah, it is. So do you, obviously now you cross off your bucket list, you still have you have a very successful corporate job, but with you and the comedy, do you think it will go a bit further than right now?
No, I don't. Look, at one stage I was thinking, all right, you've got 8 sets. You could put together something and do a show. You could do a special. You could go on tour. And I've got to say, I've been victim of my own ego. There's been a few times where the set's gone really, really well, and someone's come up and said, oh, look, I'm from this comedy club in New York, and if you're ever there, blah, blah, blah. And you think, I'm a comedy god. But then I realize I'm not, And it's not just being funny. It's about being prolific. And I just don't have the time, and I don't have the passion of the people like you or the other people in Berlin who are out there 2 or 3 times a night when there's a scene on. I don't have the drive for that. I don't have the time. And quite frankly, I'm not smart enough. I'm just not quick enough. I'm not funny enough. I can write my stories and deliver them, but that's the comedian that I am. I take great pleasure in watching the Berlin comedians who hone their craft and hone their jokes, and they're so funny. And it's such a joy for me to be a part of that. But I'm not driven to then, make it more than that. It's not for me.
Wow, you mentioned a few times you think you are not smart enough. I disagree. I don't think comedy is something you need to be smart to do. But why you constantly think you are not smart enough for this?
Oh, because I hang around these young comedians
Mm-hmm.
and they're all just like firing off their comebacks.
Yeah.
And then I get home that night and I sit up in bed, oh, I should have said that. But I can't think of it at the time.
Uh-huh.
The neurons in my brain just don't fire fast enough
Uh-huh.
to be one of those types of comedians. Like a stand-up comedian who's doing crowd work,
Uh-huh.
I would just stand there and look like a fool.
Uh-huh.
Or a comedian who's on the talk show host,
Mm-hmm.
I could never do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do storytelling. That I can do that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, with your mental situation, so in your life you only had drug-induced depression. Is that correct?
Look, I don't think that that's accurate. I think I've only had drug-induced psychosis, and then I've had depression as a result of that. So I've had drug-induced depression once. Then I had drug-induced psychosis, which then led to depression. But prior to that, I don't know if you would call it depression, but I certainly in my late teens had these feelings of where do I fit in? I don't think I'll ever be happy. No one will ever understand me. I don't know what my purpose is. But I'm not sure that that's depression or that that's different to any teenager. What I do know is that when I started getting those feelings and I thought this is getting unmanageable, that's when I started to become my own mental coach. Really focus on my own happiness.
How do you coach yourself?
I talk to myself all the time, like I'm constantly having this conversation and judging myself about, all right, so you're not happy about that. So what are you going to do? Are you just going to be a big sook and sit on the couch and watch Days of Our Lives? Or are you going to do something about it? Because what you're doing now is not working. So it's basically just a constant conversation.
So the
Like
questions,
literally in my head.
the question you asked just now, you said where I don't fit in, where I'm going in life. Did you slowly get answers of those questions?
I think it just became less important. I think as a teenager, where you fit in is very, very important. And it became less important for me. And plus I found, there's lots of people who don't fit in, who kind of fit in with their unfitting inness, But as a teenager, if you don't fit in, it's a dissociative game that's going on in your mind. Now I'm just like, come on, 51, who cares? I fit in where I fit in. And I actually have some friends who think like me, and I have things to do. But I grew up in a western suburbs, poor town of coal miners and steel workers. And I came from a fairly educated family, and I was like, I think I'll do law or medicine or something. And it was very, very common for the boys in my year to go.
What's that?
Yeah, well, okay, so I've used a slur here. I'm using the word that they used, which was to go and find homosexuals and bash them. It was a very violent, misogynistic, homophobic situation. I'm like, I don't belong here. I don't understand these people. I think the way that they think is horrible. So I ended up leaving that city and moving to another city, and was very thankful to get out of it. But many of them are still there. They married their girlfriend, moved down the street, and they still have the same views on life and politics and race and homosexuality and yeah. So I did not fit in.
And so you said you did not fit in. What you did is you left that environment to.
Yeah.
So eventually you made some actions to change the environment around you.
Yeah, I was going to move out with a friend of mine to Sydney, and he decided not to go. I'm like, man, we're going to leave this shithole and move to another city. He's like, oh, I've decided to stay, and I'm like, you coward. And so I just went by myself. So I moved to another city, not really knowing anyone, not having any friends. and that to me was a better choice than staying where I was.
So what made you actually move to Berlin? Before that, I want to say one thing, because I know many Australian people move to Berlin, and the primary reason they moved here is because the drugs are cheaper, much cheaper.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well,
for your case, is it similar?
No. Well, see, in my case, when I was taking drugs in Australia, I had quite a bit of money, so I didn't really care about the price. So if I wanted to keep taking drugs, I would have stayed in Australia. And obviously, I'm an old guy. By the time I got to Berlin, I was 40, so my clubbing days were very infrequently and pretty much all behind me. Now, Facebook brought me to Berlin in a roundabout way. I caught up with one of my very good friends from school who also left Newcastle for the same reasons. He just couldn't identify with the people. But I lost contact with him. And then finally Facebook comes along and I find him. And I'm like, man, it's good to see you again. Oh, I can't wait to see you again in real life. He was living about 1,000 kilometers away. He goes, I better hurry. I'm dying of cancer. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I've got skin cancer. I'm going to die. I'm like, you'll be right, mate. Just hang on. And I didn't take it seriously. Anyway, he died a month later, and we're both about the same age. And I went, fuck, wow. And then I went, right, you've not travelled. It's time to travel. So I bought a big 4-wheel drive and an outback camper trailer kind of thing and packed my family into it. And we went travelling around Australia in that for a year, through the crocodile-infested rivers and into the outback and Crocodile Dundee sort of thing for about a year. And then we sold that and we bought tickets to Singapore, and then we backpacked from Singapore to Italy, Agrigento. So we actually backpacked all the way up to Russia. We caught the Trans-Siberian train across, and then we got the ferry to Europe and then went through Europe. But anyway, so we're in southern Italy and we got all our stuff stolen. We were basically robbed. And we limped back to Berlin. No credit cards, no passports, but we had a friend there. We just stayed there while we did the insurance. I got a laptop, started doing some consulting. The Australian dollar was really, really good. My partner at the time got a job working on a film. She's a filmmaker. And the kids, we put them in school for a month, and they're like, oh, wow, friends, you've had us on the road for 2 years. We've got friends. And then like a month or 6 weeks later, I'm like, we could stay, couldn't we? We could actually stay. And because my partner was German, our kids were German by birthright, so they're German Australian. And so we were going to stay for a year, and then 2 years, and then 5 years, and then 10 years. Now, indeed, the drugs are cheap. That's true. But I love Berlin. Berlin's fantastic. It's cheap. It's cheap to get around. It's easy to get around. There's lots and lots of things to do. Whatever your thing is, you can do it. I mean, you've heard of the chess boxing club? You have a game of chess, and then you have a few rounds of boxing, and it's whoever has the combined winnings is the Berlin chess boxing champion. How weird is that? Yeah,
chess and boxing.
Yeah, so you sit in the middle of the ring with a chessboard and play a game of chess, and then whoever wins that's 1 point, and then they have to put boxing gloves on and punch each other, and it's the combined score of the chess and the boxing. I mean, come on. And all of these different fun things. And look, I have done a bit of clubbing. I mean, it was 4 nights a week in Australia in my 20s. Here, it's once every 12 months, I suppose. But there's just so much to do. And I like the cold. I look outside and I see the snow and it's fantastic. I hate being hot. So.
Wow, cool. While you traveled, so this friend who died inspired you to travel for exclusively for 2 years.
It was my little voice in my head going, okay, you're really rocked by this, Richard. You're really like, questioning your own life, because I was a workaholic. I had my own agency and I worked, 60, 80 hours a week, had money, but I didn't do anything, hadn't done anything. So my little voice said, get moving. This is not going to work out well for you. And yeah, little voice said, go traveling. Did that.
Wow. That was really brave to have such big dramatic change, especially.
Why?
I think there are I used to have a job in corporate world. I think lots of people there are quite afraid of change, especially leaving the corporate world, especially when everything going great. To say I want to stop and to experience something else, it's with the people I used to know, it's very rare. I think it's the way we were raised. I don't know the Western culture. I grew up in China. Most people around me we were told to get degree, education, find a job, get car, big house, and get a higher and higher position. But how to make ourselves happy, have an alternative life, unstable life is very intimidating, I think, for lots of people in the corporate world.
It's the same. It's the same in the Western world. It's the same. It was the same for me. But then my little voice is going, yeah, you could have 2 houses or 3 houses and this, and I'm like, but then I'll be dead. And what good would my houses do me? Why should I do this? I need experiences. I need to live. I need to have a life. And the experiences that I had were just amazing. You know, the people that we met and we got to know, and my worldview just changed so dramatically. Just don't regret it for a moment. And plus now I think a lot of people do take a sabbatical or two. And plus women, I mean, women still are the ones that generally take time out of work when they have a child. A lot of women don't take 6 weeks. They take 12 months or 18 months.
And that's different situation. Like you take 12 months off. It's not like you travel and change your life dramatically. Yeah, your life does get changed dramatically, but it's more passive because now there's a child. You need to take care of someone else. It's not.
But you're still out of the workforce for 12 or 18 months, which is scary to come back and realize that someone else has got 12 or 18 months more experience and training and relevancy on their resume. That is a concern.
I think your story is really, really inspiring for me. First, I think knowing that even after such a dramatic episode at work, especially you are at such a higher position, it's still not the end of the world. It's still not the end of your professional career.
I talk about it on my LinkedIn, and this is where I get a lot of my work, and my reputation is obviously important. And there are a lot of people on my LinkedIn who know what I did and know what happened. And I was talking about it recently, talking about what the dexamethazone did to me, and then saying, hey, and this is the drug that the president was on, and he's got the nuclear codes. But look, it happened. I can't deny it. I can explain what was going on. I can say, yep, it was partly the drugs, but it was also my actions. I still did those things. So I own them. I'm not taking drugs anymore. I'm working on my mental health constantly and trying to be the best person I can be. So nothing's the end of the world. How on the scale of sending videos to the board and the investors and I don't know, turned up late 5 minutes at work, where does your indiscretion fit? What you've done?
You mean my episode? I think it's way lighter. For me, it's basically like there's a kind of competition, and I failed. And I think it's a combination of a little bit unfairness in it, but also because my state of mind, I exaggerated it a lot. So I didn't do anything like make a video to say someone is evil. So it's like I overreacted a little bit to a result which is unfavorable to me.
Have you admitted this at work?
I think this is just a trigger, but there are also many other parts of the work I don't like, and I was already having a burnout prior to that. So at the end, my mental state is just so unstable. My doctor suggests me to just take time off.
Okay.
And I've been off since then. It's been 3 months now. I'm still need to figuring out. So the episode I talk is just a small trigger, but the real iceberg is the fact that I'm not happy at this type of work, or maybe even corporate work. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel challenging. I don't feel my work is meaningful. So it's a lot of things to process. I need to think about what I need to do the next. Maybe it could be I need to change a job. Could be I need to change a job type. Could be I just need to end my career in corporate world altogether, which is not the end of the world either. So I am taking the time to think about it.
All right. Look, I wish you all the best with that. I don't continue in any work that is not rewarding. If I don't like the people and they don't like me, and the work is not rewarding, I'm just like, well, look, life is too short. So I did have a head of marketing and another head of marketing job offered to me about 14 months ago, and I took that for a month. And then after the month, I said, look, I'm not a good fit for this for this particular job and for this company. And thank you for employing me and giving me this opportunity, but I'm not the person. And I explained all the reasons why I didn't think it was working out, and we shook hands and left. I continued to provide a bit of consulting to them, and I also brought in some other people to apply for the job, some colleagues of mine who were looking for work. But I don't stay in any work environment that is not rewarding in every way. It's got to be financially and mentally and supportive with the people I'm working with. There are so many wonderful people that you can work with. Just find them and do that. That's
exactly. Yesterday I was watching a talk by John Harry. He is a scientist studying about depression. One of his research is about the workplace. Why there are so many people are depressed. A main contributor is that the workplace, now how it was designed, is not really good for people's mental health, especially when it's below average. So I think so many people attach their self-esteem and self-worth related to the work, but if the work cannot provide you the support and reward you need, then it becomes really, really depressing. So, like as you said, life is too short to do a job which you don't feel happy to. And another very dangerous point is that I think many people, they are capable, they are talented, they are smart, they are intelligent, they can be really hardworking. But when they are misplaced in a job which is not a good fit, they can be perceived anything but what I just said. And at the end, the misfit of the job being seen as the lack of qualification of themselves, then it drag down their self-esteem and self-value, and that become very dangerous. And at your age, with your achievement, you already know this is a misfit. But for many younger people like me, or even people younger than me, if it's their first job or second job or third job, or all the first 5 jobs they ever had always make them feel this way, it's very easy to say, oh, it's my fault, I'm not good, I'm not intelligent. But there's a chance that's true, but there's also a chance that it's just all the first 5 jobs are similar type of jobs, and you are just not fit for this type of job. And once you can find another job which really fit you, then everything changes.
I am so on board with that. Moni, I am an old bull. Okay, I'm an old bull. So I have walked all of these narrow and difficult pathways that you're talking about. I started doing law, and I was working for a corporate criminal investigatory body in Australia, and I did that for 5 years, putting together legal briefs and investigating corporate crime, and I got into this because I thought it looked exciting on the telly, in LA Law and all these shows, but it was actually really, really dull, and I wasn't particularly good at it. And I left that and became a jeweler for a few years. I retrained and I went explored making jewelry. So like making jewelry and I haven't got anything on. So I did that for a few years, and that was wonderful. Like completely different part of your brain, and then the jewelry business needed a website, and I couldn't afford one, so I went back to school and learned how to do web development, thinking I would just run the web development part of the business, and then became a web developer, and then thought, web development and marketing go together, and so then I retrained in marketing. So, and marketing is my thing. It's a combination of analyzing situations and people, and working out what their response is going to be to certain stimuli. So yeah, but many, many times I was sitting at work going, what the fuck, why am I here? What is this all about? So
I think it's really inspiring that how many times you reinvented yourself, like from doing criminal law to making jewelry, the web developing and the marketing. Also, like at different stage, you can reinventing yourself. You had a life, then you moved to another place because you didn't fit. Then at the age of 40, you change your life to a totally different location. And at the age of almost 50, you had a big episode and started your life all over again for the better. So I think this is that's why I really, really like comedy. I come from China, as everyone I said many times. It's a very homogeneous society, and it's a very harsh environment. Very not forgiving, so you cannot make many mistakes in your life. There's almost only one chance. So if people have failure, it's very hard for them to change, or even not even failure. Once you choose something, it's very hard for you to navigate to something else.
You're on that train track, and you can't change tracks.
Yes, and also when I come to Europe, it's a little bit similar, but for different reasons. Because I went to business school, everyone around me is they are different, but also very similar in the same way that people in business school, most of them don't really have hobby or dreams. They really focus on this materialistic dream, like life.
I hear you.
Yeah, and everyone want to good grades, get a good job in the corporate, and after graduate, all they talk about is finance, stock, buying real estate, all that kind of thing. So it's in that environment, I feel very unsafe, or it's just not a environment I can say, oh, I really hate my job. I really hate it. Maybe it's not, I don't even think it's this job. I think maybe it's, this type of job. It's not an environment I could feel comfortable, I feel safe to say this out loud. But since I started to do comedy, people are so heterogeneous. Everyone is different. Also, different background, different race, different nationality, different skills, and also different age. For example, at my age, in my previous life, in my last life before comedy, how would I have a equal, friendly talk with a guy who's 50 years old from Australia? because of this hierarchy in our career stage, we can never really talk like friends. So I would never know your story. No, oh, actually, it's okay. From some people, they already been through this, and you can change many, many times in your life, and you can do different stuff in your life. And at any stage of your life, if you are not happy, you can make action, change it, and you can still have a good life or even a better life. So that is really ultra inspiring for me to know different stories from different people, knowing that life is not only one possibility, and you can fail, and you can get bored, you can want to change completely.
Yeah. Look, this is, like I said, I'm an old bull. I came to this place at 25 when I was unhappy in this corporate legal job. I still didn't know what to do. I was very afraid to change. And when I finally quit my job, I was like, my God, what have you done? You've ruined your life. You know, you could have been a partner in a law firm in 5 years' time and blah, blah, blah. But then I realized you can either be part of the narrative of a story that is outside of your control, or you can be the narrator of your own story, and you can choose your life. And if you're prepared to be the narrator and look at it and go, and his life was not going well, or her life was not going well, and so she changed it and did something else. Well, then you can change your life.
Yeah.
You're not on a fixed path. The trajectory is your own to control.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's really, really inspiring, and
thank you.
I really
I'm
love
such a
it.
huge fan, Moni.
Oh,
Like, I know I've made you blush a few times because I'm like, oh, Moni, I love you, but I do. I love how funny you are. I love how vulnerable and strong you are all at the same time. You know, I love how open you are. You know, and it is funny because I'm this 51-year-old guy with a wife, and I'm telling this 30-year-old young lass from China that I love you. But I do. I think you're just bloody marvelous.
oh, I think it's funny because you are a Jewish man, and my boyfriend is also Jewish. So every time you post on my Facebook, you say, Moni, I love you. After a while, I will reply you to say, sorry, I love another Jew.
You can say, I loved you too.
Yeah. I think it's really sweet. Every time you give me all the compliments and love virtually and or when we meet, and I feel really, really flattered and happy. So so my last question. I ask this to all the comedians because I'm really interested. What's your favorite comedy special?
Right. Look, there are so many. Okay, and I look at them. I'm not quite. I don't analyze them on the same level as our Romanian friend does, like pulling them apart and doing the how many laughs per minute and all that. I just go, all right, so why does this one stand out? Why does this one resonate with me, even if it's less or more funny than another? And it was Raw by Jim Jeffries. And obviously, I'm an Australian, he's an Australian, so we have that cultural identity that's similar. We're both kind of older guys. I'm older than he is. We're both very happy to be politically incorrect and say the wrong thing, or to say a word that you're not supposed to use in context. At the same time, you know, saying we're not racist or misogynistic or any of those things. But he was just so poignant in that special and funny at the same time. You know, so the audience has gone there thinking, it's Jim, he's going to talk about cunts and stuff, and he did talk about some pretty rude stuff. But when he was talking about gun control in the US, and it's like, and he's talking about, look, this is your argument for why you want your guns. I like guns, and that's the reason. You can talk about other things, but that's it. And it's so true. That is the reason. And I'm just like, man, this is so clever and so funny without being with the punchline. So yeah, that's my favorite. Jim Jeffries Raw.
I like that one too. But he does appear to have a few misogynistic beats. I think I don't discredit him as a comedian, but I think more about he has some mental issue and alcoholism issue. So I be forgiving about that.
He's less misogynistic and less alcoholic lately, and not as funny. Not as funny. Look, the stuff, the misogynistic stuff, I don't think anyone should get a free pass for it. But to me, I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to just look at the material that he's done that I do really think is good, and treasure that.
Cool. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and talking about your story. I really appreciate it. And now probably we have some audience who's also suffering or have experience with mental illness. Do you have a few sentences to say to them?
Oh gosh, look, where to start? Look, there's my personal experience with mental illness, but there's also my experience with people I'm close to and their mental illness. And I do know quite a few people that struggled with mental illness for a long time, and they refused to do anything about it. They refused to get treatment or take any sort of medication, because that would be proof that there was something wrong with them. They were broken, and they didn't want to admit it. A lot of times mental illness, it's just a chemical imbalance. It's not anything you've got. It's like diabetes. It's just, there's something that's just not working properly that you can take a medication for to balance, and then you're your best self. So don't be afraid to get help, and don't be afraid to take medication if that medication is just going to return you to a normal state. And look, regardless of the cause of your mental illness, I'm thinking anyone who's got mental illness or depression has got a voice, and that's a naggy, negative voice. Yeah, it's an unforgiving voice. You've got to get your other voice talking, the other voice, which is the positive one, which forgives you, which spurs you to move forward and to pursue a life that's going to make you happy. 7 days, baby. Yeah. If it happened 7 days ago, it's time to get over it and move forward.
Cool. Thank you a lot. And thank you, audience, for listening to us. And I hope you stay healthy, stay alive. Bye-bye.